Hello again. Welcome back to the Watershed Processes Lab. Got another lab for you today. We're going to be talking about the Van Dorn bottle. We've talked in the previous sessions. I'm not exactly sure which order you're going to be viewing those in, but hopefully you've seen the one on the multi-parameter probe, because that's kind of used quite oftentimes in conjunction with this. So we've talked about sampling for water quality. We talked about the multi-parameter probe being able to do your dissolved oxygen, your temperature, your pH, and your conductivity. But the cord was pretty short. It was only about 5 feet long, so if you wanted to have anything deeper than that, you kind of had an issue trying to get that sample. And then we talked about the data zone, where the information is contained within the unit itself. So if you could tie a rope to it and lower it to a position in the lake or in the ocean or anywhere else, you were able to take continuous readings with that, which is really handy for doing thermoclines and all kinds of depth profiles and other things. There are times though where if you either don't have a data zone or you need to take actual water samples that are deep, you need to have another method, and that's where the Van Dorn bottle comes in. So this is what it looks like. The whole purpose of this is to be able to lower this down to a particular depth. You can either we talked a little bit about that thermocline layer, so maybe you want to take a sample of water that's within that thermocline, or very commonly you want to take a sample of water very near the benthic surface, so right where you may have some problems with your low dissolved oxygens and your phosphorus and nitrogen levels may be elevated down there due to that. And that's where the Van Dorn bottle comes in really handy. So if you think about it, if you take a water sample at the surface, it's usually pretty straightforward. You just have to use a beaker. There's a few other things that, depending upon where you want to take the sample exactly, and I'll be actually going over those in a different video, but they're fairly straightforward on the surface. You just have to kind of get to the depth where you want to have the sample done. When you're near the bottom though, it becomes a real problem, because if you of course if you just take a container, say we've looked before at our long arm sampler where we can go down in, and I explained how we were able to turn the bottle over when we lowered it into the water. That keeps the air in there, and we get down to whatever depth we're trying to get to, and then flip it over. So that works okay within maybe 10 feet. You can put an extension on here and probably get down to 5 to 10 feet at least, and doing that method. But if you're going to get a sample, let's say off of or near the bottom of the lake out here, that's not going to work. So if we had just a bottle like that and we lowered it down, of course it would fill up as soon as we got it in the water. There's really not a real good method for keeping the bottle empty until it gets to the bottom of the lake. So the Van Dorn bottle sort of solves that problem. As you can see, it's got a couple of end caps on it. There's a kind of rubbery hose that actually connects the two end caps together, and so both of them come off. And so the way it works is you take both of them off, and it has this little metal loop at the end, and right in here there's a pin, and when I go like that, you can see the pin inside here, that little silver pin moves. Okay, and the same thing with this pin on the outside. That one is now moving, and see it moving back and forth. So I use my finger to push that down. Reopen the bottle here, and I'm going to push that down so the pin is gone, and then allow the pin to come back up, and that traps the lid open. So now the lid can't close because it's trapped in there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with this pin, and it just sits over the top like that. So now our bottle is open. So you kind of imagine if I'm on a boat and I'm trying to get a sample off the bottom, I can now lower the whole thing down into the lake without the water inside here being trapped in here at a particular depth, because the water will just kind of flow in and out as it goes down. It'll change in and out as it gets lower. So that's the whole theory behind this, is that the bottle is open all the way down until whatever depth that you want to take your water sample. So then the question is like, okay, you've got your bottle down there. How do you close it? And that's where these pins come in. There's a weight that's attached to the rope. This is called a messenger, and it just slides along. I can set this down gently enough. It just slides along the rope. So you keep this piece in the boat with you as you lower this down. So this just slides along the rope. You're in the boat, and you have this big reel of cord that you're letting out as you go down further and further. And finally you get this to the bottom, and your rope is taut, and it'll be like this in the water column. And then what you do is you just slide the messenger down. So this little piece right here is now up in the boat, and you just let it go from the boat, and it slides all the way down the rope in the water. And as it does that, it hits this button, and if we were in a more regular situation, it would hit this with enough force, which is the good point, is that this actually should be off to the side so it doesn't interfere with it. So this goes down and hits that, and both of them close. So now the water that's within this is from whatever depth the rope was when we let it go. So we can measure the rope to find out how deep if we need to, or a lot of times we don't even care the depth that much, and we may want an estimate of it just for our knowledge, but a lot of times we just want it half a meter up above the lake. So there's a little bit of a trick just in getting that half meter right. When you're lowering it down, you don't know exactly when you're going to hit the bottom, so eventually this will go down and it'll hit the bottom. Especially in a lake like this that has a lot of sediment in the bottom, a lot of muck that's been down there, that'll kind of cause a little bit of a plume to come up. And we really don't want to sample the water within that plume. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll find the bottom, we'll raise this up so we find our half meter above the bottom, so something like that. And then when you're in a boat, we'll deploy this off of the bow, but then walk this whole thing with the rope sort of hanging over the edge of the boat all the way around to the other side of the boat, and then let it kind of settle in there, get the water kind of mixed in there from that side of the boat, and then we'll send our messenger down to close it. It's just a little trick. If you don't walk it away or try to move it at least a little bit, you'll get some false readings due to the fact that once you hit that muck and all that sediment and muck kind of come up into the water, you start to immediately start changing things like your pH and your dissolved oxygen, potentially at least. So after this gets up to the top, what do? So this is all full of water now. As you can see, there's a couple of stopcocks on the bottom of it, and before you send it down, you need to make sure that the stopcock is in the perpendicular to the spout. If it's aligned with the spout, it means that it's open and going to be able to drain out. If it's closed, it means it's locked, and it's like shutting the valve of your water sink off. So these are closed, and so a lot of times you can kind of do two things. You'll oftentimes want an actual water sample that you're going to send to a lab to be able to analyze your nitrogen and phosphorus, because that's oftentimes what you're looking for when you're sending a Van Dorn bottle down in a lake. So that's where the stopcocks come in handy. You would just get a bottle like this. I've got a piece of this kind of special kind of tape that we use. This is real easy to write on, and we would label the date, the time, the site, and what it is that we want to have analyzed. So nitrogen, phosphorus, or nutrients, or something. It just depends upon what you're looking for. So that's the label. So you would label it, and then just open it. I'm going to tilt this up, and then as you open this, the water would come out, and you just fill your bottle up. You usually want to rinse your bottle, so you kind of fill it up a little bit, you close it, put the lid on, shake your bottle around, dump it out, and then take your final sample with open. A lot of times you'll need to open the top one in order to make sure there's airflow in order to allow the water to come out. If you're just doing not actually taking a water sample, or after you take your water sample, you may want to get some readings on your parameters, which you remember, right, are your oxygen, dissolved oxygen, temperature, pH, and conductivity. So a lot of times you can take your multi-parameter probes, just put them in here, kind of close the lid, kind of locks them into place. As usual, you'd wait a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, for them to acclimate to the water, and then take your readings. So that's one way you can use a multi-parameter probe that's only got a 5-foot cord on it to get readings that are at the bottom of a 20-foot lake. Okay, so multi-parameter, or the Van Dorn bottle, is a really handy item. We have the cord on this. You can tell we have this from the DEQ. The cord itself is actually metered out, so we can tell how deep it is. Need to redo them. Actually, there's a mark right there, but that'll help you easily determine how deep you are, kind of at the same time that you're doing your sample. And then this reel allows you to kind of reel the cord back in without a lot of hassle, especially when you're in a boat. It's kind of dangerous to have your cord laying all over the place. You can trip on it. And another little trick that we use sometimes is to keep this weight from running all over the place when you're not using it, is you can put a little loop in the line. Just a little knot, and that kind of keeps your messenger from sliding around or causing the line to be pulled out or something. Okay, until next time, enjoy the day.